Hello, good Monday afternoon, everyone. I hope you are well. I have been enjoying the lovely cool weather here in Edmonton. It has been minus 20 degrees Celsius for most of this week. But that also comes very close to minus 20 to minus 30 degrees in Fahrenheit. So just let that roll through your brain a little bit. But the sun is shining today. I am excited to create and have fun with you all today. And I can see that we have Marguerite here again today. Lovely to see you again, Marguerite. Let's add you into the stream. Let's see here. Anyone else who is interested in joining us to chat creativity and brainstorm their stories, you are welcome to let us know in the chat. We take requests to join, and we really just enjoy. We really just enjoy brainstorming as many creative stories as we possibly can. So, hello, Marguerite. Looks like we are getting you in and ready today. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. Oh, there we go.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very strange. When I went in, it said there's a little icon that said "Watch the stream" that popped up. Oh, sorry, just a second here. I'm going to turn off my notifications. It's been one of those. Oh, I thought I had. It's like, okay, I had a meeting with someone at 11 o'clock this morning, so that was good. And then I thought I had a meeting. I'm part of a writers group, so I thought I had a meeting with them. And then I thought after that I had another meeting with somebody else. And then this was going to be right after that one. So I thought I had a really cram-packed day. But I had the meeting at the 11 o'clock, and then I realized, oh no, I'm going to have almost no time to get from the writers' meeting to the meeting after that. So then I called her and I was like, hey, can we meet at 2:30? And she's like, we're supposed to be meeting now. And I went, oh no, really? Yeah, you're 15 minutes late because we agreed on 2, but it was 2 o'clock her time.
Time zones. That's what we love. We love.
Oh,
we
I know.
love time zones so much. In all of our promotion for Creator Labs, we always put the time in like Canadian time, but then also Australian time because it's just absolutely crazy time zones. Although I understand that Monday afternoon is a little bit easier to join something than a Tuesday morning. So sorry, Australian listeners. But just know that we're recording everything. So if you can pull a bit of inspiration from this, more than welcome. For those of you who are coming across this stream for the first time, my name is Emily. I run a creative hub called Story City, which is an app and set of creator tools that allow anyone to make and sell interactive stories and experiences that are only open in the right location. So think Pokemon Go, but for books, film, audio, theatre. That is kind of our jam here at Story City. There is very little in the way of travel and a lot in the way of choose your own adventures and puzzle trails and all of those kind of fun and entertaining ways to take in your city and explore. And for those of you who have never met Marguerite before, she's one of the creators that takes advantage of the fact that we are here every Monday, comes to brainstorm her stuff, which we are very grateful for because otherwise it's me talking into the void. So you guys should also come and join us live, and then you can come and join us and we can brainstorm your stories as well live. So, it doesn't have to be interactive. It can be, hell, a novel, a film. I don't really care. I just enjoy playing around with stories and suggesting fixes and all of those kind of things. That's sort of my jam. So welcome, come one, come all. I may not be very helpful in poetry. I do have to put a pin in that particular piece there. I seem to be to be I my poem literacy rate is very is what I would term low. I do struggle with poetry, so I may not be the best at helping with that, but we can always try.
Well,
So yeah,
I will say I haven't written it in years, but I used to love poetry. So just putting
there
it
we
out
go.
there.
Maybe if you come along, Marguerite will be here and she will be able to help you brainstorm specific challenges with that poetry, of course. So that's the point. That's the point of this, is a creative circle where we help brainstorm each other's challenges and go from there. So Marguerite, what do you want to chat about this week?
Well, I've been thinking about two things. Have you ever heard of ChatGTP?
Oh, I shall have.
I think everybody has at this point, but I love that platform so much. It's great for brainstorming ideas. I literally say, like today, I'm working on a new story, nothing to do with the one I'm working on now. And I said, I think I want my character to believe this. Now write me a description. And it'll literally write like a whole page of this is what they do and this is how they think. And like it's just a great brainstorming tool on that level. But what I was thinking about, because my story is actually set in a physical location, like it's a book. But the thing is, the buildings in the book don't actually exist yet. Does that make sense?
So you are imagining the buildings in the locations that you're setting this? Okay.
Yeah. So I am setting it.
Will they eventually exist, or this is okay?
Yes. So the whole idea is I've created a fictional world, but the fictional world is based on a physical location I found that I actually want to build in.
Mm-hmm.
So then I thought, okay, how do you, like, let's say I'm in Okotoks, right? Okay, so how does someone in Okotoks go through an interactive adventure in Okotoks when the story is set somewhere else completely?
Mm-hmm.
And then I started thinking, the scavenger hunt, because there's 9 chapters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then the actual scavenger hunt is about finding where the story is being told in your town.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
So it depends. So if you were incorporating a scavenger hunt, so a scavenger hunt essentially is getting people to do a series of preset activities, right? And if you are wanting them to find where to do that in their town, are you also adding in some sort of riddle component that they need to solve to be able to find the right location? Is that the
Yes.
Okay. So essentially the story would be the same, but the riddle to find the next location in their town would be written specifically for their town.
Yes.
Yeah. So like that makes total sense, right? So you it still is a little bit of work, right? Because you obviously need to be clever with your words and understand, what is where in that town and in relation to what to be able to do the thing. But in saying that, it would be fairly easy to do, right? And so the great thing about using like going to toot my own horn here for a minute, something like Story City, is that it has the functionality where it allows you to actually turn the map off. So Story City would normally show up a map on each new chapter or location, and it will show you where you're standing and where the next chapter or chapters that you choose between are. But you can actually choose to turn that map off and leave people a riddle, and then they need to figure out where that location is. And the way that they would be able to tell if they had made it to the right spot is because the geofence would still be in that location, and so the app would buzz, or it would have the button at the bottom which would turn from blue to orange and let them know that they had gotten it right, because the button is only clickable if they're in the right spot, right? So you can actually do that where like they don't even have the map at the bottom, they've got to solve those riddles to then be able to get to the next point.
Yeah.
And that's essentially like kind of taking that escape room style of puzzle, right? Like where you're taking a riddle and you're doing that. And it's been interesting because there are different destinations that do that. So I know that Canmore, for example, had a puzzle experience that you could do in Canmore, but it used, I think it used paper rather than an app. And so if you couldn't solve the clue, then you got stuck and you didn't get to go further and like make it to the end, right? So like they did it as a kind of like a prove yourself kind of thing as well, right? But you can do that digitally as well, where you kind of turn that map off and you use that, right? I suppose it doesn't stop people from just wandering the streets and seeing if the button turns on, but like, you know, even though Okotoks is a small town, it's not like it's not easy to wander every street to try and trigger a geofence. Like
it is. I mean, it is 30,000. Does have a population of around 30,000 people. So I mean, it's small compared to say Calgary or Edmonton, but I wouldn't really call it small.
And look, and there's ways that you can also set a story as well, right? So like rather than setting it in, say, the small town of Okotoks, like you can set it in a small town, right? So you reference small town vibes and like all of that kind of thing. And so if you think about like Welcome to Night Vale, for example, Welcome to Night Vale is kind of set in a small desert town, right? You know, they call it Night Vale, but like you could honestly, if you wanted to take Welcome to Night Vale and turn it into a locative experience, you can potentially put it in every small town in North America, right? Because the it is and turn every small town in America into Night Vale, right? Because the language that they use is generic enough, and the locations and the people that they talk about is generic enough to a small town. You could find the town hall, the local university or college, etc., in that small town, right? And so you could set it up so that you were doing that every week. The other thing that you could do is you could set up a story such that it makes sense that you would be looking into the lives of someone in the place that you set it. So say, take for example, so many rom-coms set in New York City, right? You could potentially have your story set up almost as though you're looking as though you're incorporating the idea of looking into somebody else's life, right? And so like you can do that in a book because you imagine yourself in the setting of New York, but like say for example you were in a small town, the story is set in New York and you're trying to imagine your city as New York City, right? And so the way you can do that is potentially leverage tropes from magic realism or science fiction or those kind of things, where you might have a thing where you've written it into this story that anytime you look into a shop window, it's actually a portal into the shop front window in New York City. And so it's actually been set up that way. And so it might be a little bit sci-fi, for example, but every shop window that you look into gives you a portal through to a different city so that you can see the other shoppers that are walking past that shop, or maybe you see the set dressing in that shop in New York City or whatever that might be, right? And so for those of you who haven't heard Marguerite speak on these Creator Labs before, she's essentially doing a locative story that has 9 chapters, that has specific locations in a town or a city, but she's actually using those stops as a way to introduce people to local businesses in that area. And so as a way to promote them, get people to buy local, shop local, and then those stories and those people get folded into this fictional story, right? And so like you could even be like, say, for example, if we go back to the New York example, Saks Fifth Avenue, right? And so one of your businesses that you could have in the town of Okotoks, they consider themselves the Saks Fifth Avenue of Okotoks. They consider themselves the FAQ Schwartz toy store of Okotoks. They could so you might have something set in the toy store in New York City, but like through the power of being able to look through the window and seeing New York, like you introduce them to the store that sells toys within Okotoks, and so you essentially kind of associate, and so you might build that idea of a portal or a screen or a window into another city as a way of being a part of your story. But then you could also be like, you could be a little bit cheeky, tongue in cheek, and be like, Barb's Beauty Boutique is the Saks Fifth Avenue of Okotoks, right? And so Story City allows you the ability to have these little like information pop-ups as part of the story. And so you could tap on a pop-up and it could be like, you're standing at Barb's Boutique. And Barb would I'm sure Barb would consider herself the Saks Fifth Avenue of Okotoks, and this is Barb's story, and she just wants to make you feel beautiful, and it's a department store for all in the heart of Okotoks, right? And so you can also be that kind of cheesy, kind of tongue in cheek as well. My instinct would be to go more the Night Vale route with like a generic big town, small town kind of a vibe. But like introducing like science fiction elements or fantasy elements or whatever that might be is also a way that you could do that as well.
Yeah, and the cool thing, like one of the scenes, for example, there's been a really, the characters inside the story, there's been a really emotionally traumatic kind of thing that's happened inside the story. Like the main character, Alyssa, learned something that's very hard for her to handle, to deal with. And her, at that point, best friend and, eventual love interest kind of says, hey, this has been really rough. Let's go for a ride, because they both ride horses. They're on a ranch. So then they go riding up this mountain. And there's the narrator of the story who lives inside the book, who's kind of hanging out, looking at everything. And, where do I need to kind of weave the story? And he's looking and he's like, I think I'm going to make it snow right now. And let's just say it's the middle of summer. Or I think I'm going to sprinkle stardust all over them. Or, he has the ability and you as the user becomes that person who's like, I think I want to, like the way I explained it, it became a creme brulee sky. What if somebody actually made creme brulee? They could, or they're an artist, they could paint the sky. They could paint the sky like burnt sugar or, whatever, because, connected with that is they use whatever design tools they're wanting to use. And then they can put that design inside of the story and kind of just mess around with it.
So they're essentially, are they essentially playing an Olympian kind of like God force, where they're kind of like, I am good, like Greek god, like Greek god
Yeah,
style. I'm
basically.
gonna meddle in the love lives of these mortals. Is that the kind of vibe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully a little more benevolent because the Greek gods are so mean to the people. I mean, I like to think everyone's got their virtue, and Greek gods tend to be, a little bit, they're like the Q in Star Trek. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, but Q was the Loki of that world, that
Oh
universe,
my
right?
god.
Like the rest of the
Yeah.
Q were not as bad as him. Like they had
Eh,
some rules, like
mhm. I just got you thinking, I think.
I've recently been
Yeah.
watching the Orville, so like
What?
so the Orville is almost like a spoof of the Star Trek kind of TV
Ah,
series is. It's on Disney Plus, and so they have it. There's a lot of like making fun of the science fiction tropes, but they blend it beautifully with actually also having some serious like the beautiful heart and serious like sci-fi adventure in space of the Star Trek series is, and like they use all of the the door opening noises and the
oh,
subspace anomalies and so they use all of the like the nostalgic things you think of when you think of like the Star Trek series is, and
yeah,
but then they like
yes, Scotty
overlay
and all that,
like awkward moments where someone will reference something pop culture Australian and an alien will take it the wrong way and like so and we'll use like human like metaphors that like robots are like that doesn't make any sense and like it's and so they find out, for example, one of the ones that I recently just watched was that they found out that one alien essentially had an iron stomach and he could eat anything and they made him eat a cactus and like so just like really stupid moments that blended so
yeah.
beautifully with like actual like Star Trek style thing. So that's what. Yeah, so I had that on the brain. Um, but yeah, so like those are the different ways that you could potentially handle that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like, but also, yeah, the idea of the riddle allows it to be specific to a city as well. So then that gives, and then the riddle could also then allow you to be specific to the business that has filled that space for that
yeah,
part of the story in that particular city, right?
yeah. And look, one thing I was thinking about too is like each business, like every business has kind of its community distinctives, the things that draw people to them. Um, and just thinking around like I was thinking puzzles, maybe a person that has that idea of like, oh, a scavenger hunt would be a fun sort of like try and find the business, figure out which one it is. And then the other side of it is like, okay, maybe they don't want to hide their business. They want a person to get straight to the business. And once they get there, they have to do something.
Mm.
Like they have to do something silly, or they have a riddle inside the store they have to solve, or they maybe want to buy a product. They want to offer a discount on a product or something. Like there's like a
If it was like
promotion once they get
like if you put together a like get smart style like story, the
there. Mhm.
shopkeeper has to say the secret phrase that you mix with the riddle to be able to solve it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then that becomes a way of people engaging on another level. And then like you mentioned before, looking at like because you said there's a way to, because you always, when you're doing the creator labs on, or not the creator labs, like the when you actually go through an interactive story, you did mention you might be able to show me how to link up a phone with those so people can actually see the story, like see that, just to show people like
Yeah,
how that works.
so this is so any of you who have been around on Adventure Hour on a Thursday or Friday would have seen that I have figured out how to screencast my Story City app onto the screen. And so I suppose it depends on what you have. Do you have an iPhone? Do you have an Android?
I have an Android.
Excellent. And your computer at home, is it running like a Windows 10 or something? Or
Yeah.
yeah. So essentially on your Android, when you go into the main like settings bar from, so if you like go to the top of your screen and you swipe down and it shows you like, you're turning your Wi-Fi on and off and turning on and off like sound and all of that. If
Yeah.
you kind of swipe it down further, it gives you a bunch of different options that you can play with. And there's an option there that says link to Windows.
I don't see that one. Oh,
Because
maybe it's on the second.
because essentially I have to swipe down twice. So if I swipe down once, it shows me all my notifications, and then if I swipe down again, it shows me a bunch of different options that I can turn on and off, like power saving.
Yeah. I see the section. Like I see all of the flashlight and the airplane mode and the power mode and all that stuff. Like I see that, but I don't see.
Yeah, so
Connect to window.
is there like kind of multiple pages? Can you scroll through them?
Yeah, like so let's see what I have.
Yeah, so on mine it says link to Windows is what it says.
Let me see. Link to Windows. Oh, I have that one actually. It's up.
Yeah, and so if you then link to Windows, and then in there is on your computer there is a program called Phone Link, and if you open that up, it'll then request from your phone to then be able to then be able to connect to the phone link, and then that's how you cast your phone to the computer.
Yeah, so I actually have. Oh, okay. So because I actually used that one, I just forgot what it was called.
Yeah.
For a minute.
So that's a great way to kind of and I should explain to everybody else here that the reason again that because Marguerite is talking to businesses about incorporating them into this fictional storytelling world that she has, and so she wants to show them what it looks like. Like, what does the app look like? How does having a fictional like scavenger hunt style story that incorporates their businesses, like what does that look like? What does that actually mean? And so for any of you out there who wanted to learn how to link your Android phone to your Windows computer, there you go.
Yeah. So I'm confused. It's just the phone. Like I don't like you're saying I can like connect the actual screen of the phone with Phone Link?
Yeah, so with Phone Link, you can connect the screen of your phone to your computer so that when you're on a call with someone, so you might be doing a Zoom or a Google Meets or whatever that is, you can actually share your screen. And so if you have that program on the screen that you share, they can see what's on your phone. And as you're moving around the phone and whatever you do on your phone screen, they can see on the computer window.
Because, yeah, I don't actually see where I can do that.
Yeah, so on your computer there is a program called Phone Link, is what it will be called.
Yeah, no, I have that, and it's connected, but I don't have.
And so in the video, in the Phone Link, it kind of has those tabs: messages, photos, apps, calls. And you'll notice that on the left-hand side, it has a little image of a phone, which would have your wallpaper on it. So, so if you have the program here, you'll notice that here there is this little tiny phone just off to one side, and if you click on that, it then will load that phone screen.
Yeah, no, but I don't know. Anyway, I'll have to like I don't need to do that right now because like I just don't I see the phone but I don't see an option to show the screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have to, yeah, I can figure I can maybe just call Windows and say, hey, this isn't working.
Yeah. I'm sure that you'll be able to find setup instructions for that online.
Yeah.
But that's the general premise of how you do that.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Someone said you can make 2 Discord accounts and share your phone from one account as well. So someone in the chat was saying that
Oh,
that can be
oh,
super
yeah.
local
Well, I
too.
have it.
Mm.
Yeah, I've got Discord. So yeah,
Thank you,
actually, that
Squared
makes.
Mo. We appreciate your help
Thank you.
there. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. There
I'm
you go.
learning Discord more and more every day. It's just
That's a
great.
super handy hack.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So there you go. We've got two for those of you who can't see the chat at the moment and watching this as the video version. The lovely Squared Mo said that you can just make two Discord accounts and you share your phone from one account to the other. So
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Yeah, and so that's the way that you can do that kind of stuff as well, right? Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what was
That's
really
cool. Okay.
do you mind, Marguerite, if I show people your demo story on Story City? Do you mind if I show them that?
Please. No.
All
Yeah.
right,
Go for it.
because I think that people might kind of find that of interest as well. So essentially, Marguerite set up a demo story as part of um, what she's essentially showing the businesses in her city how they can step into this fictional world and be a part of this fictional world and get exposure from people in their communities. And so she's set up a story called the Portal Tree Chronicles, and in it she actually has created all of the different chapters that you would get within this story, which may or may not include scavenger hunt elements. And in that, she not only includes the text for a sample story as part of that, but then she also shows people how the different pop-ups would work and where they could have bits and pieces dropped into the narrative for that particular area. And originally, when Marguerite first kind of just put it in for approval, it didn't have any locations in it. And my suggestion was to pick locations of what you would consider to be an ideal business to fill that part of the story. And then that way, when people look at the story, either if they are in that particular location or in that particular city where Marguerite is speaking to businesses, or if you have a business in another city who's kind of looking at a story in what we call spoiler mode, which allows you to kind of look at stories from home. You don't have to be in the location to do it. Then that allows them to kind of see, like, what would it look like? What would the map look like? What would all of those kind of bits and pieces look like in that? And so that was kind of what she built from that to show people how that might work, what the story might look like, and then what those choices might be as well. And I don't know if you saw as well, Marguerite, but like when people go into a next chapter, you can actually customize what that button says as well.
Yeah.
So
Oh no, I didn't see that.
yeah, so at the moment, like what they would see on the button is that they would see next chapter, the crash, right? But you
Right.
might
Yeah.
put a button in there being like, turn the page of this book, or you might issue someone with a challenge, and so you change the button to say, I accept this challenge, or so you can actually customize what that interactive button says as well.
So yeah, there's quite a few little things about, like, one of the things, like, you were referencing, kind of like a puzzle trail, scavenger hunt kind of thing, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so
So you were
where
saying,
if you
like, you
set
turn off the
yeah,
map and then, like, put in a clue,
so
like
exactly.
sorry, is that actually inside the chapter, or is that a feature you have? Because I wasn't sure how
that's
you
a feature
actually.
within the creator tools. So if, say, for example, you
Okay.
didn't want people to be able to see this location for the second chapter because you had put a riddle in there to help them figure out where the second chapter was, right? See, there's an option down here that says hide map for this chapter. And so all you have to do is tick that box, and that will hide the map in that chapter. And so what will happen is that in the chapter, the button at the bottom to go to the next chapter will just say, you need to find the next chapter to unlock this. And so it gives kind of instructions.
Yeah, so is that like, I guess what my question is, oh, wrong one. Like what I was wondering about was, where are we here? Like when you're going into, I actually created a dummy account.
Nice. Excellent.
just so I can see, okay, I've made these changes here. Okay, what's it going to look like if I'm just a random user coming in?
Mm-hmm.
So then you're saying, we're going over here, and I'm on the description page, and I want to turn off a location. So I go to the chapter list.
Yeah, and so in the chapter list where all of your locations are, you would just click on the location that you didn't want a map to show. And so, for example, you've connected miles apart to TikTok, which is the next chapter. So if you hide the map on miles apart, it means that it will hide the map to show people where TikTok is. And so the only way they will be able to find TikTok is by solving the riddle that you have put to find TikTok.
Okay, so what I'm wondering is, where do you put the riddle?
And so you would put that just in the content for that story. So you would put it in the bottom section of the story where you would be like, solve this riddle to get to the next place, and you would probably work that into the story, right? Like whether so this from memory of looking at this, someone is essentially reading a book that is a part of this story, and so the book could have the riddle in it. So that could be how you work it into the story.
Okay, so then you put like a little section saying, like as a pop-up or as a little description at the bottom of the chapter, to get to the next chapter, follow this, or once you get to the next place, this is what you have to do in order to,
exactly.
Get the next chapter.
Yeah, exactly. And so you would essentially have them solve that, and you might even, if you wanted to, so you've done pop-ups for various things in here, right? So you might even have a hint pop up as well, where if the riddle is really hard, you might provide people with a hint to help them solve it, and you would do that as a pop up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But I figure that might help people to kind of see as well, kind of, Marguerite is building something very specific, but she's using fiction and a fictional interactive story to do it. And so that's why, the demo makes sense for her. But if you are just creating something that is interactive story that you want people to use to, that's how you can do that. I love Squared Mo's suggestion. Some say the next chapter is the sound a clock makes. That's awesome.
What?
We have someone in the chat giving suggestions for like riddles that you could do. So some say the next chapter is the sound a clock makes, like TikTok, because you were saying that the next chapter was
like
TikTok,
that a lot.
which I loved. Some say this app is where Charlie D'Amelio blew up. Like they're giving like riddles for the titles of the next ones. I love those so much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Squared Mo, who are you? I'd like to meet you.
Yeah. And if you think about it, like, so that next chapter is like TikTok. You accept McFlurry as payment. I love that.
Yeah, man. Where are you? Where are you based?
And so even like TikTok,
Emily, is this someone you know, or?
No, this is not someone that I know. That's the joy of TikTok, of Twitch, right?
Yes.
Is that you can have some great conversations with
Mhm.
everyone in the chats, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so like and Squared Mo was right. Like, if you've say like you've got a section that's like TikTok, and you can use a riddle like, some say the next chapter is the sound a clock makes, and then maybe like the business, the local business that you're highlighting is in the the clock tower of like City Hall or something, right? Like,
Yeah.
so you can tie those kind of things together, particularly when you use like more like generic locations, right, for things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I just
and
with
you were talking about like
the
the
businesses
soap
I
maker that you had been speaking to, for example. So,
yeah.
if you
Mhm.
have a place that sells handmade soaps, you can kind of do,
Mm.
and you might target some a business that sells handmade soaps in every town that you maybe
Yeah.
spread this to, right? So,
Well, the big thing I want to do is because going to those businesses, but the other side is I have a whole Discord channel dedicated to if someone wants to put designs into the story,
mhm.
they can design something and then post it, and then I can incorporate that design right into the story.
So when you say designs, what do you mean by that?
What, like painters, musicians, furniture make, like literally anything you see in that story, you can say, oh, it's a chair, but it doesn't say what style the chair is. Maybe I want to make one. So you can digitally render it. You can actually go into your own workshop, make a chair, take a photograph, make a video, turn it into a 3D asset, whatever. And then in one of the pop-ups, I'll say, hey, go buy this person's chair here.
Oh, so you're essentially kind of talking about like collaborative worlds,
Yeah,
um and that even sounds like incorporating the metaverse a little bit into the
yeah,
story as well,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
That's very I like that. That's very meta in the connecting of a story in the real world to um a digital asset in
Um,
another um in another platform, for example. Um,
yeah.
Particularly like what gets me most excited about those kind of things is like fantasy applications. Like you read, oh goodness, who is the wonderful YA author? There's a wonderful YA author that has a book series. I want to say Marie Lu. I don't think that's correct. Where essentially you're in a world that has a yes, exactly, sounds like it as Oprah Winfrey Oprah Winfrey documentary. You're right there. Yeah, so Marie Lu has this wonderful, I think it's Marie Lu, I'm pretty sure that's who the YA author is. A wonderful series where augmented reality becomes a part of people's expression in the real world. And so people have like butterfly wings, and they walk around with like animated tigers or like those kind of things. And so I can definitely see like those kind of like fantasy aspects would get me excited, that like like some sort of fantasy story within a city, that like so you actually have those wings, and the people can make the assets for those wings, and then you can have them in a whole
Yeah.
bunch of different metaverses, and you're like, oh yeah, these are the wings from this fantasy story that like I could also do in my city as well, like that kind of thing like excites
And
me.
then
But then you have the other aspect, like what Squared Mode says, where like it's very like this table has not been described, but someone decides they want to make it an actual XYZ type table and make a 3D asset that they sell or whatever, right? um yeah.
and then the next stage is like with those butterfly wings, they're in the digital space. Then what I want to take it a step further and say, okay, you designed the butterfly wings for this character inside the story. Now I'm going to connect you with a designer that can make those wings for you in the real world that you can buy.
Mm.
So, say a kid wanted to have a Halloween costume with butterfly wings on it. You could go inside the story and actually buy them.
Yeah, and you'd connect it to someone in Etsy who makes wings that then, yeah.
Yeah,
That's really cool. I
exactly.
like that. I enjoy that as a kind of link and taking a fantasy or a fictional story and being able to do that. Goodness knows that I have bought enough like you know, Disney related Lilo and Stitch stuff in my time that like I would be on board with that.
Basically at the end of the day, I want to create a kind of culture, not like Disney, because Disney did their own thing, but that's kind of the whole idea, is like they've done something where they started out as an animation company and they expanded that whole concept into its own universe, really its own metaverse. And every one of those storylines has a product line as well, that you can go to a Disney store, you can go to Disneyland or Disney World, or you can buy a video online, or like you can do, once you have a piece of content, there's not really any limit to what you can do with that content. Like, I mean, you could really even put the construct of Story City inside of one of my stories.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Then it becomes a loop. Very, very. I love meta narrative. It's probably my favorite thing on earth. You can get really philosophical and very, very deep with that and kind of do it, you know, Spider-Verse did, you know, with Marvel Universe and that kind of thing, and just like create these constant feedback loops, really.
And that's incredibly exciting. And yeah, like this is why I enjoy brainstorming with you on Mondays and with anyone who comes along, right? Um, yeah, like there's so many. A lot of people think of metaverse as just being in that game space, but there are so many ways that it can roll out. Um, and when you think of a lot of stories that and a lot of people that kind of think of metaverse in those IPs, like your Marvel IPs, like your Disney IPs, that go from a movie into a book, into a TV series, into a game, right? Like anything that can be turned into a game is automatically metaverse, expandable material, Star Wars, etc. Right? But then you think of those other stories that don't lend themselves to games, right? Like much more serious movies, or you know, documentaries, or like you know, romance stories, which, you know, might make great TV or film, but don't necessarily, you know, translate into a game, right? And you think to yourself, okay, well then how does the metaverse apply to those? And what you're describing is how the metaverse applies to those kind of, you know, IPs,
you can,
right? Like you can build those IPs out in really effective ways.
What do you mean when you say IP? It's not a term I'm really familiar with.
So intellectual property. So anytime you create a world, so like if you create a book series, that's a particular IP, right? Intellectual property. It's a particular, and so then that could be turned into merch based off illustrations. So say if it was a comic book, could be turned into merch, could be turned into, and so like anything that uses the same character set in the same world would be considered an IP. So an intellectual property, and so you can so like Lilo and Stitch would be an intellectual property, Mickey Mouse would be an intellectual property, Star Wars is a conglomerate intellectual property, and so anyone could take their intellectual property and then be able to build a metaverse out of that by having designers make things that they talk about, to being able to get the exact same fashion that, you know, Carrie from Sex and the City wore to XYZ date, right? And you don't necessarily have to be a big, you know, television production, movie production, or Disney to be able to do that. And I think that it sounds like that is what you are trying to build.
Yeah, and the nice thing about it is there are so many tools out there now where you can do that. you can literally like I just found a free reservoir of 3D assets that you can get for forever. Like I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's I asked Chat GTP, which is the um, artificial intelligence thing where you literally type in, I want to find whatever you want to find, and it's takes it beyond what a general, like a Google search engine will give you, and it says, based on your mandate, these are the different resources you can use. And then it literally just gives you, and then one of them I said, hey, do you have a free 3D uploading system? And like, yeah, here's an app for you. And then it becomes this whole conversation around, okay, I even found like a OS, and literally you can just go in there, you can either get free 3D assets, or you can say, hey, I want to upload my asset from any other program that I've been using into this system, and you can create your 3D work.
Yeah, I think that's a thing that a lot of people are excited about the Chat GPT, is that it can be a very powerful search engine. You've got to obviously verify, because it's also then known for taking like misinformation and stating it as fact as well. So like you've got to obviously verify that whatever it's giving back to you is like, and I think that was why there were all those articles. Yes, that's right, Squared. That was why there were all those articles about Google freaking out about how good Chat GPT was, because like it had that ability to kind of add power to search. But yeah, like those are kind of really powerful things that you can do with that kind of software. I know I know that people have been using it in a lot of really weird and interesting and creative ways. So I had someone actually tell me, I had a startup founder tell me that they treated it like a co-founder, where they would ask it what its opinion was on XYZ go-to-market strategy and those sorts of things. So
yeah. I've actually done that myself, and I literally reworked my whole website around what input they gave me. And I mean, I don't know, anybody can be the judge of whether or not it's a good website, but it's really, and then also like financial projections, it's done really well as well.
Interesting. Okay, there we go. There we go.
Like there's just so many. I always knew people were like, oh yeah, AI and blah 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 blah. And I actually just call it intuitive information analysis, because it's not actually intelligent. But that's another conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's what the creators of those kind of systems are hoping for, but at the same time, I think it's important that you let it prompt ideas but also, like, it's the same with anything on the internet, right? Is then to let it prompt ideas, but then to do your own research around that and run your own tests around the efficacy of XYZ thing, right? And you use it as a tool, but not necessarily as a replacement for yourself or someone with that expertise. It leads you in the right direction so that you can find the people that will make something great. But I think that we have come to the end of this week's creative hour, or at the very least I have, because I have a young child who needs picking up from daycare. But it was, as always, delightful brainstorming stories with you, Marguerite, and with you also, Squared Mo. I love the commentary there. We appreciate you jumping in and being creative with us. This happens every week. We do our creator labs, where if you have an idea, a thought, a story that you're wanting to workshop, play around with, it does not have to be interactive. It does not have to be Story City based. It can be a novel, a short story, look, I'll give a poem a go, as I said at the start, but I can't guarantee the results on that one. But the idea is to have people come in, be collaborative, throw around ideas, and just help people get unstuck, right? So we do this every Monday, as well as every Thursday, Friday. We do an adventure hour where we live read, argue our way through a real life choose your own adventure. You get to armchair travel somewhere new in the world, meet a creator, um, and and uh, and be inspired to travel somewhere new, check out a new person who makes some good stuff. We missed, unfortunately, our one last Friday. Our wonderful author Isabel Carmody had COVID, so she could not speak very well. So she will probably be rescheduled until April, May this year. But this week we have the wonderful Jason Theodosis on to do the Escape of Blogo, which is a story about an escaped monster that you decide to help or capture around the Bogo Road Jail area in Brisbane. So please feel free to join us on Friday evening in North America or on Saturday afternoon in Australia.